It's LV Europa. Whatever you do, make sure you do it in the toughest environment. Mac double. That's the only way we grow. Yo, roll call for them tough niggas who act inspiring. You can't hit the stage with my vets if you don't meet requirements. Heard you did all that work from the fifth to the first when I birthed your retirement. You hanging it up and it's still not enough in the toughest environment. Toughest environment, niggas will spit till they vomiting. Toughest environment, niggas will bring the piranhas in. Toughest environment, better be talking to scholarship. Toughest environment. Who the toughest, who the strongest, who the smartest? Hitting the stage, PowerPoint, and I'm going through papers regardless. Listen up, got a point to prove, but I'm moving on, cause you niggas retarded. Toughest environment, only up make you a target. You don't want that smoke shit you bought last week, run down on the whole Christina clash with the pop. Oh my gosh, I think you the GOAT, no rigmarole. Still take total control, just put my shit at the top of the post. For toughest environment. Listen, just get it, I'm still past a minute, I work every minute, and maybe I'm on with Chris Harris thoughts, and I thought you should know that this ain't a scrimmage. And I'm shaping you right, molding you tight to be in the image of toughest environment. Yo, roll call for them tough niggas who act inspiring. You can't hit the stage with my vets if you don't meet requirements. Heard you did all that work from the fifth to the first when I birthed your retirement. You hanging it up and it's still not enough in the toughest environment. Toughest environment, niggas will spit till they vomiting. Toughest environment, niggas will bring the piranhas in. Toughest environment, better be talking to scholarship. Toughest environment. I'm sure we can work this out, just get in the ring. You better be Zion Alexa, this best of divine prospect when he doing this thing. Or Captain Tazari, out there cross that line, I get away clean. Or Ali Muhammad, so valid, still got me up on my ding. All of it brought together because of the studio. Stop acting like y'all could've been doing that cause you didn't do it though. And I watch them lions get ran out of the den, this shit'll get crucial. Who you know will take the whole damn stage and turn that shit to a musical. Stay in your cubicle. The environment's tough, don't wire me up, I'm calling your bluff. I'm running it back and I'm running it back like it's never enough. Got them diamonds in the rough, and we can't get to every treasure, but you gotta help me dig it up. But to me it's like whatever. Yo, roll call for them tough niggas who act inspiring. You can't hit the stage with my vets if you don't meet requirements. Heard you did all that work from the fifth to the first when I birthed your retirement. You hanging it up and it's still not enough in the toughest environment. Toughest environment, niggas will spit till they vomiting. Toughest environment, niggas will bring the piranhas in. Toughest environment, better be talking to scholarship. Toughest environment.
So long it feel like home to me. To keep it real, I keep that chrome in me. Sometimes I feel nobody's home. I bet you ain't expecting this tone. You ain't tripping, it's just all in your bones. Yeah, early dismissal for your songs. I don't want beef, rearrange your tone. I'm not too proper, I just stop before you home. Put your life on that shit, leave that shit alone. Out of my mind, I need the big bag. Out of my mind, I need the big bag. Out of my mind, I need the big bag. Quarterback shine. Out of my mind, I need the big bag. Quarterback shine. At night it feel like I've been out of my mind all day, and I gotta say it feeling good to be right back up on the scene. My pistol beam so clean, I call it God's eye. Come back with fits and jeans, so mean I leave them home tied. Pull up with shit with screams, and bitch was screaming all night. She left her cream up on the seat up on my motorbike. Yeah. Take a picture of the dream and make a satellite. Don't take no picture feeling like. I usually roll with M16s, but I've been chilling right. Check my team, they full of beans. I pray the Lord to grant your dreams if you ain't fucking with the team. Tip his bitch up if he fucking with the team. I swear that's what we mean. I swear that's what we scream. All you gotta do is share with us the cream. Share with us the cream. Out of my mind, out of my mind. I need to be back. Out of my mind, out of my mind. I need to be back. Out of my mind, out of my mind. I need to be back. Quarterback shine. Out of my mind, out of my mind. I need to be back. Quarterback shine. Can't forget my nigga E. Out of my mind.
All right, you already know what it is because you see the flyer. You know what the topic is because you see the flyer. OTK, American Indian Slavery and the Beginning of the Transatlantic Slave Trade Part 2. OTK is in the building. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, man? Peace and love.
I don't see you. I don't see you.
Oh, my bad. Peace and love.
There you go. There you go. What's happening with you, brother?
I'm good, man. Just came from my son's wedding. That's why I'm running a little late. You know
Yeah, good to see you back in the building, man, bringing that information.
Oh, yeah. This one here gonna hit a little different.
Yeah, so let's take off where we left off at, man. We was dealing with the Indian slave trade and the beginning of the transatlantic slave trade. Let's go to the latter part of it. What is the beginning of the transatlantic slave trade? Let's start there. Go in.
That's what I brought up in the first bill, so I'm glad you did that because I was going to reiterate. Hold on, before I go into that, let me get my screen share.
Yeah, let's do that.
Real quick. 1 second. All right. Okay, you can see that side.
Yep, it's popping up. There you go. Up and running.
Let me give a shout out. Let me give a shout out to my son and his beautiful wife and my grandchild. Got married today. That's
congratulations to your son, man.
Congrats to him. Yeah, definitely. Okay, you can take that down, and then we let's go back. Let me go back to put me back on the screen, and we'll go from there. Okay. All right. So where we left off at is where we was talking about Christopher, or whatever his name was, or whatever like that. He was started in Haiti or whatever like that. I'm going to reiterate on that tonight also and bring it on into the Americas. For one, Christopher never hit North America. All right, that's for one. The Portuguese never had no colony in North America. That's for two. So with that being understood, that kind of narrows this trade down and the numbers. So the reason why I'm doing this is because me being in Charleston, we grew up thinking, okay, everybody from Charleston, if you look like us, oh, you African descent. And then when I got older, I'm like, well, my grandmama, them boys didn't say that. You know what I'm saying? Oh, my community like that. Somebody came. Yes, somebody had it in them, for sure. No doubt. But when I seen that more American Indians got taken out of Charleston than Africans brought in, it started making me dig a little deeper and worrying about my state. So I tried to focus in on Charleston and my state. So the beginning of the transatlantic slave trade starts with American Indians being taken back to you could say Europe. They was getting taken to Africa. They was getting took to all over or whatever like that. Once they got into America, they definitely was taking them all over too. A lot of us went freely. They helped them out, helped them cultivate the stuff that we was taking them. So when we see that Christopher he didn't find the gold because you know the story goes that he was looking for Prester John's gold. You know what I'm saying? He never found that. When he came to Haiti and the Dominican Republic, which was Hispaniola, they called it Hispaniola, and the other Caribbean islands, he snatched up some people. He took them back. That was the beginning of it. This is way before any so-called African was brought across here. And this happened for years inside the Americas. So that's where I left off at. This time I'm going to take it into the Americas. You know what I'm saying? Mainly, okay, so when I speak about Carolina, it's going to include like Virginia and parts of Florida because it wasn't no Georgia, and it wasn't no North Carolina at the time. It was just Virginia, Carolina, Florida. All right. So what we're gonna start with is right here. So Sa, what I'm gonna ask you first is this question right here. Can you see my screen? Because I can't see it. I can't see if you can see it, if it's up on the screen on your side.
Yeah, you still got your son and his wife up.
Oh, okay. Hold on. All right. So
I removed that. You still got your son and his wife up.
okay. Good now?
Okay, I see. Yep.
All right. So this is from Slate, by Rebecca Union. So this is called America's Other Original Sin. So Europeans didn't just displace Native Americans, they enslaved them and encouraged tribes to participate in the slave trade on a scale historians are only beginning to fathom. Here are 3 scenes from history of slavery in North America. In 1637, a group of Pequot Indian men and boys, having risen up against the English colonists in Connecticut and been defeated, were sold to plantations in the West Indies in exchange for African slaves. All right, allowing these colonists to remove a resistant element from the midst. The tribes, women were pressed into service into white homes in New England, while domestic workers were sorely lacking. In 1741, an 800-foot-long coffle of recent enslaved Sioux Indians, procured by a group of Cree, Assiniboine, and the Monsoon warriors, arrived in Montreal, ready for sale to the French colonists hungry for domestic and agricultural labor. And in 1837, Cherokee Joseph Van, expelled from his land in Georgia during the era of the Indian removal, took at least 40 enslaved Black people along with him to the Indian Territory. By the 1840s, Van was said to have owned hundreds of enslaved Black laborers as well as racehorses and a side wheeler. All right, so a reductive view of American past note 2 major centuries long historical sins: the enslavement of stolen Africans and the displacement of Native Americans. In recent years, a wave of historians of American slavery have been directing attention to the ways these sins overlap. These stories have uncovered, through African slavery, still the narrative that dominates our national memory in a different light, revealing that the seeds of the system were sown in earlier attempts to exploit Native labor. The records of Native enslavement also shows how the white desire to put workers in bondage. And, on the next one, I'm going to show you how when they first started using this white and Black thing, sometimes they went by status. We can see some records that it went by your status, depending on what you got classified at, when they was trying to make it just a clearly white and Black thing. So disrupting the intertribal politics and creating uncertainty and instability among people are already struggling to adapt to a radical new balance of power. So let's get this clear too. When I'm saying American Indian slavery, I'm using the terminology that they're using, but you're going to see all of these come after wars. So it's more POWs than anything. That's what it is. American POWs. All right. They didn't get it that easy. For real, for real. So you can go and look in the Encyclopedia of American Indian Wars from 1492 to 1890 by Jerry Keenan, and you will see every war that happened over here. All right. So before looking at the way Native enslavement happened on the local level, which was inner states, just strictly in North America, and then some of the Caribbeans, Really, the only way to approach a history that's fragmented and various, it helps to appreciate the sweep of phenomena. How common was it for Indians to be enslaved in Euro-Africans, by Euro-Africans? Counting can be difficult because many instances native enslavement in the colonial period were illegal and ad hoc and left no paper trail. But historians have tried a few of the estimates. Thousands of Indians were enslaved in colonial New England, according to Mary Ellen Newell. Alan Guale writes that between 1670 and 1750, more Indians were exported into slavery through Charlestown than Africans were imported. So this woke me up. This one I say, okay, this thing is on a whole nother level. And y'all can get into this. This is by Slate. And here's another quote just to back it up. So what they was doing is they was grabbing slaves or getting prisoners of war, because the war started up top. They was warring up top, like heavy, Pequot, King Philip's War. They was bringing them down south. And then they was taking people from down south up north. So they was just interchanging American Indians. That's what it was saying. Interstate commerce. So y'all can go look this up. It's a Slate article. This is an article, America's Original Sin. So now we're gonna go to this one. The Untold History of Native American Enslavement. Key takeaways. Let me make sure it's big enough. Let me make it a little bigger. All right. So key takeaways. Native Americans were enslaved by Europeans in North America before the African slave trade begun. So now, this is the beginning of it in the Americas. It wasn't them coming over here. It was them fighting us. And then, guns is a big thing, and then they had help. They couldn't do it without help. These Indian agents and stuff like that, a bunch of bands and stuff. So, all right, let's start with this. Long before the transatlantic African slave trade was established in North America, Europeans were conducting the trade of enslaved indigenous people, beginning with Christopher Columbus on Haiti in 1492. European colonists used these enslavements as a weapon of war, while the indigenous peoples themselves used enslavement as a tactic for survival. Along with the devastating disease epidemics, the practice contributed to the fierce decline of indigenous populations after coming of the Europeans. The enslavement of indigenous peoples lasted well into the 18th century, when it was largely replaced by African enslavement. It has left a legacy still felt among indigenous populations in the East, and is also one of the most hidden narratives in American historical literature. Documentation. The historical record of trading enslaved indigenous people is found in the disparate and scattered sources, including legislative routes, trade transactions, enslaver journals, government correspondence, and especially church records, making it difficult to account for the entire history. The North American trade of enslaved people began with the Spanish incursions into the Caribbean and Christopher Columbus, if that's not whatever his name is, practice of enslavement, as documented in his own journals. Every European nation that colonized North America forced enslaved indigenous to perform tasks such as constructions, plantations, and mining in the North American continent and their outposts in the Caribbean and European cities. European colonizers of South America were also enslaved indigenous people as part of their colonization strategy. Nowhere is there more documentation of enslaved indigenous people than in South Carolina, the location of the original English colony of Carolina, established in 1670. It is estimated that between 1650 and 1730, at least 50,000 indigenous, and likely more due to the transactions hidden to avoid paying government tariffs and taxes, were exported by the English alone to the Caribbean outposts. Between 1670 and 1750, far more indigenous people were exported than Africans were imported. All right. So that's another one to back up. And y'all can go get this this thought. You can get it. This got recently updated. As far as 2025. Now, these are all wars, everybody. All wars. All right. So now let's go to the Smithsonian perspective of the other slavery. So, you know, they talk about this, about the Latinos and all that stuff like that and all that. So let me see. Right here, I'm gonna read this first paragraph, but y'all can go find this right here. It's only 8 pages. It's called Smithsonian Perspective, the Other Slavery. All right, I'm gonna read this one right here. So in the Western Hemisphere, let me make it bigger, I'm sorry. In the Western Hemisphere, a very mention of the word slavery brings to mind images of Africans transported across the Atlantic, sugar plantations in the Caribbean, or the American Civil War. African slavery was surely a defining aspect of European colonism in the Americas, but it was not the only one. Native Americans were subject to the parallel system of bondage as disregarding and vast as African slavery, a system that has nonetheless remained hidden and poorly understood. In our hemisphere, indigenous slavery occurred in every major area, both predating and outlasting its African counterpart. During the 4 centuries between the arrival of Columbus and the beginning of the 20th century, some 2.5 to 5 million native were enslaved. All European empires took part in this human trafficking: the English, the French, the Dutch, and the Portuguese. But because Spain came in control of the richest and most densely populated regions of the Americas at the same time, that it lacked African colonies and thus access to African people, it emerged as the greatest enslaver of indigenous Americans. To extract the hemisphere wealth, Spain made use of the most abundant labor and its disposal. So ironically, beginning in the Columbian times, the Spanish crown prohibited indigenous slavery. So this is when he went back, he took them slaves back. The queen was like, nah, they are free as long as they convert. You know what I mean? That wasn't no easy thing. Conversion. That started wars, especially in Mesoamerica, South America, coming into up top in the Midwest and New York and all that. That's the spiritual system thing. You know what I mean? The French had to do it a different way. They kind of attacked the spiritual system and try to correlate it with the book and then start calling them Jews and stuff like that, man. You know what I'm talking about? But let's go. Except in few circumstances. In 1552, it banned the practice entirely. So from here on, no Indian can be made into a slave under any circumstances, including war, rebellions, or when ransomed from other Indians. Unlike African slavery, which remained legal and sanctioned by empires around the world for centuries, the enslavement of Native Americans was against the law. Yet that this categorical prohibition did not prevent the Spanish from taking enslaved indigenous all over the hemisphere and even importing them from the Philippines. To get around the royal prohibition, Spanish colonists and entrepreneurs, in collusion with some royal officials, resorted to legal subterfuges, carved out exceptions, and devised kaleidoscopic labor arrangements such as the encomiendos, the repartimientos, and the nombreos. So now they're talking about the Central America, South America, and stuff like that. So, you know, the Philippines, they was going around through the backside. So we also got something on that also. Yeah, we also got something on that too about that. Okay. So this just goes to show you that they was doing this everywhere. It was all after war. So once they got like into Central America and getting into the parts of South America, that's when they really started seeing people who was fighting back. So this is when you know, bondage got taken. You know, people, what they did, they started shipping them different places. All right, this is in the Smithsonian. All right, so let's go to this one. This is from Brown University. Colonial enslavement of Native Americans included those who surrendered too. So now here we go. Providence, Rhode Island. A study by Linford B. Fisher, associate professor of history at Brown University, found that Native Americans, including non-combatants who surrendered during King Philip's War to avoid enslavement, were enslaved at nearly the same rate as captured combatants. Native American slavery is a piece of history of slavery that has been glossed over, Fisher said. Between 1492 and 1880, between 2 to 5 million Native Americans were enslaved in Americas, in addition to the 12.5 African slaves. Now, we know today that this 12.5 has reduced. While natives has been forced into slavery and servitude as early as 1636, it was not until King Philip's War that natives were enslaved in large numbers. Fisher wrote in his study, the 1675 to 1676 war pitted Native American leader King Philip, known as Metacom, and his allies against the English colonial settlers. During the war, New England colonies routinely shipped Native Americans as slaves to Barbados, Bermuda, Jamaica, Azores, Spain, Tangier, and North Africa. All right, so this is the beginning of prisoners of war. So when I say American Indian slavery, I'm saying it's behind the war, captured, and it only took an Indian pretty much to catch an Indian back then in these times. All right. So while Africans who were enslaved did not know where they would be taken, Native Americans understood that they could be sent to the Caribbean plantations and face extremely harsh treatment from their homes and communities, according to the study. Fear of this fate spurred some Native Americans to pledge to fight to death, while others surrendered, hoping to avoid being sent overseas, the study found. Fisher said, studies, why shall we have peace to be made slaves? Indian surrenderers during and after King Philip's War appears in the Journal of Ethnohistory, a volume devoted to scholarship on indigenous slavery in the New World. Native American enslavement was documented in the colonial correspondence, shipping records, court cases, town records, colonial government orders, and petitions from colonists to British government. Okay, so this is another source that y'all can go find from Brown University. It's talking about the King Philip's War and what started happening after that. It's a short read. You know what I mean? We know why it was happening. They wanted land. They was getting too greedy. They you know what I mean? They started coming in by numbers once they had learned how to grow crops and stuff like that. They was at the beginning of starting to breaking off from the crown. They was tired of paying the crown. All right. So let's go to this. Like I said, I also got something to show you when they was bringing Asian slaves into colonial Mexico. So it's also a book called From Chino to Indians, but this is coming from Cambridge University Press, Asian Slaves in Colonial Mexico, From Chinos to Indians. So I'm gonna read this first part. During the late 17th, 16th, and late 17th centuries, countless slaves from cultural diverse communities in the Indian subcontinent and Southeast Asia journeyed to Mexico on ships on the Manila Galon. Upon arrival in Mexico, they were grouped together and categorized as Chinos. Their experience illustrates the interconnectedness of Spain's colonies and the reach of the crown, which brought people together from Africa, the Americas, Asia, and Europe in a historical, unprecedented way. Yes, the Europeans was also inside of this the transatlantic slave trade too, when they say they was bringing Africans over. Yes, definitely. It was over 1 million enslaved in Africa at the time. Okay, in time, the Chinos in Mexico came to be treated under the law as Indians, so becoming indigenous vassals of the Spanish crown after 1672. The implication of this legal change was numerous. As Indians rather than Chinos, they can no longer be held as slaves. So now, by them being labeled as Indians rather than Chinos, they can no longer be held as slaves. I have something else on that. That the status of Indian, it excerpted you from being in slavery. So now this is when we start seeing racial classifications start to take place, where they start reclassifying us and stuff like that, because they wanted to keep us in bondage. You know, Point blank. So this comes from Cambridge University. Y'all can get this. It's also a book called Chinos, From Chinos to Indians. All right. So now let's get into some of these people from Virginia. All right. Let's talk about the Nottoways in Virginia. All right. So the Nottoways was writing a petition for state recognition. You know what I'm saying? To Virginia, to the government, for state recognition. So in this, we have this guy describing them. You know, y'all can see where this comes from. Okay. Nottoway Indian tribe of Virginia, dwelling in communities throughout the southeastern counties of Virginia and surrounding the Nottoway River into the Tidewater area are the present day generation of the people of the Longhouse. All right. Members of Council on Indians. This is who they write to. Submission, petition. So we're going to get into what William Byrd is going to say. All right. Thomas C. Perneur's History of Southampton County, this is where I'm at, y'all, recounts numerous references to the Nottoway Indian life in the 1700s. These comments were recorded in journals of persons like Virginia's noted diarist, William Byrd. All right. Virtually all the makers of historical documents of that era were explorers, colonists, or settlers who sought and often secured control over or destruction of the native peoples. Thus, understandably and regretfully, their records and observation of native/Indians reflected their social political goals and their own cultural biases, thereby refracting and warping to some extent what? All right, so there's a site source and where those coming from, 1 and 2. All right. So now, William Byrd was no exception. Byrd's view of the Nottoways was neither particularly admiring nor sympathetic. But his comments in 1728 referring to the Nottoway as being already the only Indians of any consequence now remaining within the limits of Virginia remain useful and instructive. As fellow Virginia Indians, we appreciate that the Mattapony, the Chickahominy, and the Moyacan, and the Rappahannock, and the Pamunkey, the Nansemond, and the other tribes of Virginia will view Byrd's 1728 assertion that the Nottoways were the only of consequence, and his father's description of all the living in stupid idleness as absurdly inaccurate and offensive. Yet, as descendants of one of the most documented historical tribes in Virginia, we, the Nottoway descendants, trust the Virginia Council on Indians and its representative of the modern era recognized tribe will appreciate that it is equally offensive in 2006 that the Nottoway descendants have not yet been accepted within the recognized community of Native Americans/Indians of Virginia. We would like to work jointly to correct this historical problem. All right. So let me make sure I didn't go down too far. Okay. All right. So that's the writing the petition. And that's what he was saying. So 2 years later, February 20th, 1985, the Commonwealth of Virginia passed House Joint Resolution number 205, recognizing the Nansemond Indian tribe. It is particularly instructive that the final paragraph of that resolution closed by the stating resolved further that the General Assembly of Virginia, by this resolution, does not address the question of whether the tribe has been continuously in existence since 1776. Emphasis added. All right. So now let's scroll down and let's go right here. So this is getting more into it. We submit in our petition for recognition using the criteria established by the current recognized tribes represented on the Virginia Council of Indians. We believe upon reflection, and any fair-minded person would acknowledge that these new criteria are not historically equitable. Yet, we would rather attempt to work with the VCI than around the VCI. it would mean the whole process for Indian descendants to become adversary. Since we appear to be the first Indian tribe to petition under the new criteria, we hope that
You went out, OTK. OTK, your sound system went out. Your phone went out. I don't know if you got a call or not.
no, I'm on the computer.
Okay. All right, you back. You back.
Okay, my fault. Okay, back to it. Okay, my bad. So the most obvious and sensitive issue is the disparate consideration of racial intermarriage and tribal identification. The Nottoway were described by William Byrd as people of mahogany skin, or the copper color ones of Nottoway town, long before any extensive intermarriage with other Europeans or Africans. All right. Upon first contact with colonial settlers, traders, and the land speculators, the Nottoway were dark-skinned tribe. Now we talking about Virginia, family, huh? So I want y'all to stop doing this looker shit when y'all look at my dark complexion and say, "Oh yeah, he's got to be from Africa." That is racism, bro, for real, at its finest. Over the time, the Nottoway, like other American tribes, had intermarried with Europeans and African Americans. In the aftermath, the Nat Turner Rebellion in Southampton County in 1831, all dark-skinned inhabitants of Virginia, particularly free people of color, were terrorized. Thus, free Indians and free Negroes were treated the same badly. All right? So now we see that these Indians are dark-skinned. They're mahogany skin. All right. Now we also know at a certain time they start reclassifying. You feel me? Yes. So when they started reclassifying us, let's go to this. Man, let me blow this up for y'all. Let's see. All right, that should be good. All right, so this is by Jack D. Forbes. And this is called, this is called the use of the terms Negro and Black to include persons of Native American ancestry in Anglo-North America. In 1854, California State Supreme Court sought to bar all non-Caucasians from equal citizenship and civil rights. The court stated the word Black may include all Negroes, but the term Negro does not include all Black persons. Okay, so the word Black may include all Negroes, but the term Negro does not include all Black persons. We are of the opinion that the words white, Negro, mulatto, and Black person, whenever they occur in our Constitution, must be taken in a generic sense, that the words Black person in the 14th section must be taken as contra, distinguished from white, and necessarily include all races other than the Caucasian. As convoluted as the quote may be, it tends to express a strong tendency to the history of the United States toward creating two broad classes of people, white and non-white, citizen and non-citizen, or semi-citizen. The tendency to create two caste societies often clashed with the reality of a territory, which included many different types of people of all colors and different degrees of intermixture of European, American, African, and Asian, Native American people, whether of unmixed ancestry or mixed with other stocks, where times affected by the tendency to create a purely white-Black social system, especially when living away from a reservation or ancestral homeland. So this really getting applied to the people who didn't want to leave their land, wanted to stay. They became citizens, became incorporated with the system and stuff like that. You know, they didn't want to leave. They didn't want to go on reservations, you know, during the Indian Removal Act. So in the British slave colonies in North America along the Atlantic coast, many persons of American ancestry were at times classified as Blacks, Negroes, mulattoes, or people of color. And these terms were, of course, used for people of African ancestry. The manner in which Americans and part Americans was sometimes classified as mulattoes, and people of color from New England to South Carolina and in the Spanish Empire are explored elsewhere. The purpose here is to illustrate how the term Negro has been applied to people of American descent. All right, give me 1 second real quick. Up the side. 1 second real quick. All right. So now, Explorations in the Ethnic Studies, Volume 7, Number 2, July 1984. The possibility that Native Americans were quite commonly called Negroes is very much supported by the Portuguese usage. During the colonial period, Brazilian Indians were referred to as Negroes or as Negros de Terra, Negroes of the land. A great many examples from the 16th and later centuries are cited by George Frederick and his analysis of Portuguese sources. These do not have to be repeated here, but suffice to say that it was so common that finally in 1755, a royal decree had been issued as follows. Among the regrettable practices which have resulted in the disparagement of the Indians, once prime abuse is unjustifiable and scandalous practice of calling them Negroes. Perhaps by doing so, the intent was no other to induce in them the belief that by their origins they have been designed to be slaves of whites, as in generally to breed the caste blacks from the coast of Africa. The directors will not permit henceforth that anybody may refer to an Indian as Negro, nor that they themselves may use the split among themselves as in current in the case. All right. So we see right there that we see Indians being classified as Negroes. They went to Portugal. They're being classified as mulattoes and free people, people of color in South Carolina, from New England to South Carolina. That's the East Coast, pretty much. All right. So now let's go into this. All right, that wanted to make sure I got the right one up. Okay. All right. This is from North Carolina Periodicals Index. All right. So this is called From Indians to Colored People: The Problem of Racial Categories and the Persistence of the Shawans in North Carolina. All right, let me blow this up a little bigger just to make sure everybody can see. All right. Of course, over the course of the 18th century, the native North Carolina Shawan population adopted European practices and sold their allocated reservation lands to confirm and survive in the British colonies. These acts led to their reclassification from Indians to colored people by colonial officials, who also assumed there was a loss of cultural identity. They always say something lost, y'all, but we still here. You know what I mean? Contemporary writers incorrectly believe the Shawans no longer exist as a political or cultural entity. However, an examination of archival and oral history indicates that the Shawan have maintained their cultural identity. Furthermore, the colonial racial reclassification is indicative of attitudes towards race and identity formation in the 18th century. So that's a little quick read, real short. That's an NCPI. You can definitely dive into more. You can dive into this. You can dive into race awareness and all of that. Definitely. So this right here is a picture of a Shawan descendant. Let me make sure y'all can see this. Okay. All right, there. So this is a descendant of a Shawan descendant. Andrew Jackson Robbins, a Shawan descendant, was the son of Noah Robbins. Andrew Jackson Robbins, a Shawan descendant, was the son of the Noah Robbins, one of the petitioners in the legal dispute over Indian time. He lived in the Berry County before settling in the neighboring Hartford County during the Civil War. Andrew Jackson Robbins, served with the 34th U.S. Colored Infantry. Photograph courtesy of the Winston family. All right. So land sales and court cases in the 1740s, free people of color in Kubernerik, Camden, Pasquot, and Peckerill counties used the Hitter surname. Members of the Hitter family, born in the late 18th century, carried the first name John and Thomas. The names of the show and readers. A witness in the 1818 case involving Adam Hitter, whose name appears in the Pasquotank County records, described him as the offspring of a white woman and an Indian. These free people of color were likely Shawan descendants. All right, and this goes on. Boom. Although their ties to the group of the Gates County remain unclear, free people of color with other Shawan names such as Bennett, and it goes into more. And this is coming. I actually got that from somebody that was doing a bill on the Shawan Indians. Shout out to him. You know. Let's see. So all of this started happening, and then it leads into, we see it in the 1900s, we have this thing called the Racial Integrity Act, an attack on indigenous identity. This is eugenics at its finest. All right. Walter Plecker, them dudes like that, they are eugenicists. To eliminate a person's identity or a people's identity is eugenics. They had good practice of it because they did it to their own people. All right. So before I go into some of these documents, I want to get into this. Being from South Carolina, I always hear people say Geechee and Gullah. Geechee Gullah. Gullah Geechee. They put these two peoples together. They don't go together, y'all. They're separate peoples. With a dialect, with a serious dialect. So this right here is the land of the Guale. Guale. So the Francian missionaries encountered many new peoples north of the Spanish colonial capital of St. Augustine. First, they met with Mocomo people, a tribe of the Timacuans, and thereafter they encountered the Guale. The Spanish sometimes called this area the Lingua de Guale, meaning it was the place where the language of the Gullah was spoken, which was different from the language of the Timacuans. The coastal territory of the Guale stretched north of the Altamaha River and south of the Ogeechee. So people, it's a tribe called the Ogeechee. Right here inside this book, Dictionary of in the American Indians, you will find the Ogeechee. All right. Since I can't find this book on the web nowhere, I just read it real quick on what they say about the Ogeechee. Look at my bookmark. All right. I got you marked. My bad.
OTK, you all right?
Yeah, I just said, yeah, I'm finding something real quick in this book.
Okay.
In this book. Because I couldn't find it on I couldn't find it nowhere in order to to show it on the screen. So
all right.
Just read right out the book. All right. So right here on page what's that? Page 293 in the book Dictionary of the American Indians by Wing Books, Stoutenberg, right here. It has the Ogeechee right there. So the Ogeechee, a small tribe of the Ogeechee who lived along the Ogeechee River in Georgia. They were wiped out by the tribe, by the Creeks in the early 1700s. Now, when they was going through their own interwar with each other, when they say wiped out, that means they probably assimilated, most likely they assimilated in with the Creeks, because that's what kind of stuff was going on here after wars. So now, here's a map. to give you a better picture. This is modern day Georgia, what they call Georgia. So you see right here is the Ogeechee. This whole little area that's right up in here is the Guale. Altamaha River, the Timucuans right there. So this map contains attempts to chart the approximate location of the 4 mission churches that are pertinent to our story of the 5 Georgia martyrs. The exact location of the mission of Santa Catalina is known, but as it is on ongoing archaeological dig sites, it's not open to the public. The exact location of the other missions are not, to our knowledge, known. So the land of the Guale was almost not land at all. The Jesuit fathers who had abandoned the missionary work of the Franciscans had characterized La Florida as the most miserable land ever discovered by man. As one long pile of sand filled with marshes and swamps, the Jesuits thus withdrew, having little success in converts. So the Franciscans took up the challenge. The Spaniards were there for missions, not for gold or silver or gems, which this part of the New World lacked. The coastal regions were notorious for sickness. The Guale were also seen as not being overly receptive to the faith. So we should not characterize this as a colony of exploitation. And we need to see the Franciscan mission areas for why they really were heroic for just volunteering for the task in the first place. So the Guale were people who lived in the low country wetlands, where the sea and the land brushed together through countless golden marshes. An amazingly beautiful area that is constant changing and difficult to map. As wild as these islands were and are, people have lived upon them for thousands of years before the Spanish missionary explored their many sounds and estuaries, while the archaeologists can find evidence of those ancient people. Their pre-Columbian story belonged to prehistoric times, but the coming of the Spanish, we begin to have a written account of their descendants, the Guale. Given that official reports of the epidemics were routely made, it is noteworthy that the Guale seem never to have such a report given. So they may well have been a very hardy and healthy people, especially given their life near the low country where it flies with its flies and mosquitoes. Lastly, we need to keep in mind in the nature of the mission. Often, the indigenous people the missionaries encounter might have lived in tribes that lived in migratory villages, if you will, and that they lived in quasi-permanent settlements, cozy quasi-permanent settlements, and move with the seasons. Or after some years, the Native Americans might move around seasonally to let fields lay fallow, or to be closer to game. It was frustrating to both the missionaries and the Native peoples to some extent that the missionaries were asking the Native peoples to be more stable, rooted, or settled than they may have been inclined to be. We see this all over, not just here on the Georgia coast. So a quasi-migratory people have been drawn into a religion that sets aside holy ground and that wants to develop villages in a more permanent way around a stationary change for indigenous people. This may explain why some of the missions seem difficult for us to pinpoint on any modern map today. All right, so credit the First Georgia missions of the Southern Catholic Heritage. And let me scroll back up. It's the land of the Gullah. You can find this easy. All you got to do is type in the Georgia Martyrs, and you will find this. All right. sa.neter, let me get 1 second. Let me get a drink of water real quick. All right.
All right, go ahead, brother. You good? You good? For anybody that would like to come up, when the brother finishes, make sure you stay on topic, and there's no debate. Just ask your question, and get an answer. You know, and you got to turn on your camera. So if you're scared, don't even turn on your camera. You scared? Don't even come in. I mean, don't even come in.
All right, I'm back.
All right, you
So
still there? Go ahead, bro.
yeah. So what I was showing you here is that it's already a Ogeechee tribe that lived off the coast of the Ogeechee River, and then you have a Guale, which is the land of the Gullah, and now today they're making them of African descent. But I'm showing you that these people have been here for thousands of years. Nobody knew about this, huh? But we knew about it. We knew about these rivers. That's why we used to trip like, hold on, man. I know about these Gullah Geechee festivals, and they're dying down. They're dying out. We got to understand church and these missionaries played a major role in telling people who they was, especially the AME. I know because I was in it heavily. All right, so let me close some of these up that I already went through. And then I'm gonna get into this other source real quick, and let's go. We'll go from there.
Great job so far, brother. You're doing good. You're doing good.
Appreciate that. All right. Let's see. All right. So this one right here is you actually can find this. I got it in the back. You can share it.
Yep, is up and running.
All right. So this right here is called a rose by another name is a cactus. So it's saying defining mixed blood Indians in colonial Virginia and the Carolinas. So the reason why I like showing this is because people have heard of these stories and didn't know where to find them at. So some of these are court cases, some are petitions. So if you can't find a petition, it's actually some books out there with some of these things in it, and there's some readings out there with these things in it. So what I get out of this when I read this, and I'm not a teacher, I'm a master's student. I listen real good. I don't come to teach, I come to bring the information. And you take whatever you can take from it or whatever like that. I'm sure I'm saying something that somebody agrees with. I mean, hey, don't check me, check the information. Ain't like I'm not showing no sources. Anyway, all right. So right here we see defining mixed blood Indians in colonial Virginia and Carolinas. When I hear the word defining, I'm hearing somebody else is doing looker shit to classify somebody. And in these cases, we see people are suing to get out of their indentured servitude because they're trying to get held longer inside their indentured servitude. So we're gonna go down right here. Let's start with 1770 with civil. So on the motion of civil, an Indian woman held in slavery by Joseph Ashbrook had to leave to prosecute for her freedom in form of papyrus. Civil, an Indian wench versus Joseph Ashbrook for plaintiff to take deposition of Elizabeth Blankenship and Thomas Womack. Now look, she is now classified as a mulatto. So this is what I get when I see the finding. Are some people mixed? Who knows? But I'm seeing she's an Indian in one part of the case, and then later on, she's a mulatto. So it says right here, civil, most likely less than full-blood Indian, she was described as Indian up to the point it was determined that she was legally a slave. Then she was described as a mulatto. Use of the term is influenced by the status of her servitude. All right. So now let's go to Nancy and Coleman family. Let's go to them. In August 1794, registered free papers of Nancy Coleman, a dark brown, well-made mulatto woman, freed by judgment of the General One Court of John Hardaway, being a descendant of an Indian. All right. So check it. On the 10th, 4 years later, register free papers of Daniel Coleman, a dark brown free Negro or Indian, formerly held as a slave by Joseph Hardaway, but obtained his freedom by judgment of the General One Court. Nancy Coleman and Daniel Coleman. Think they might be family, y'all? Yeah, same people that they suing. Some coincidence. One could have been a husband, one could have been a wife. Okay. All right. So now let's go 2 more years later. Register free papers of Hagar Jumper, a dark brown mulatto or Indian woman, short bushy hair, obtained her freedom by step and dance as being a descendant of an Indian. All right. 1805, register free papers of Betty Coleman, a dark brown Negro woman. They done went from mulatto to Indian to free Negro. Now, Negro woman, the family, formerly held as a slave by John Hardaway. The same dude, same Coleman family. All right. So when we look at these stuff like this, they're defining it by their lookership or the status wise in this paper. All right. So now let's go with Robin right here. Right here with May 12, 1712. Thomas Chamberlain brings before this court his servant, mulatto man, Robin, and informed the court that he had several times run away, ordered to serve 1 year from release date. Now, this man is running away now, but they saying he's a slave or whatever, but they say servant, indentured servitude. All these cases. Robin, Indian. All right. First, he's mulatto right here, y'all, at the top. Now, Robin, Indian, filed against Major Chamberlain next court. February 12th, Robin, Indian, ordered free from Thomas Chamberlain, service at the end of the year's service. So just a year later, check out what Chamberlain did. Thomas Chamberlain, against his servant Robin Mulatto, had unlawfully absent himself for 16 weeks. So now he's going from Robin Indian being free from Chamberlain to now Chamberlain is putting a case against him saying he's a mulatto. So what it's saying is Robin is described as mulatto until he's determined to be legally held as a slave. Then he is described as an Indian. Use of the term influenced by his servitude. His former master tactfully uses the term mulatto to influence the court to return him to slavery. All right. So let's go down right here to Peg, like Peg. Peg, an Indian, woman servant, belonging to Richard, appeared, be a judge, free. He be summoned. Peg, a mulatto, in just a couple of months from April to June. Then going from an Indian to mulatto. They defining her. Servant, born in the county, whose mother was an Indian, entitled to freedom at the age of 30 years. Had petitioned for her freedom against her master, Richard O'Leggett. Mulatto is used to describe an Indian half-blood. All right. So they're defining her as an Indian half-blood to describe her. All right. So they're describing people. You feel me? Okay. Let's go right here. 1740. Petition to Thomas Barr. In the order of the church warden of Dale Parish, do bind out Joe, a mulatto, the son of Nan, an Indian woman, according to law. Mulatto is used to describe an Indian half-blood. All right. William Randolph. To my son John, the third party of my slaves, he taken my 2 Negroes. All right. Indian John and Essex as a part of his third, which 2 Negroes I propose he shall have. So now we hear the will, and this is a will of Richard Randolph. He's calling Indian John and Essex 2 Negroes. All right. An Indian is described as a Negro. The term is influenced by his servitude. All right. So this is it's very man, I can go on for hours with this so much in this. But it's one I want to get to. right here. And we're still in Virginia right here. But it's the coastal of North Carolina. Matter of fact, we in North Carolina right here. We're going to start right here with North Carolina. Shout out to the Shavers family, man. The Shavers family. You know what I mean? William Shavers was arrested and charged as a free person of color with carrying a shotgun, a violation in North Carolina state law. He was convicted but promptly appealed, claiming that the law restricted free Negroes, not persons of color. The appeal court reversed the lower court finding that free persons of color may be, then and for all we can see, persons of color by Indian blood or persons descended from Negro ancestry beyond the fourth degree. Desire of the legal system to lump all non-whites into one category still exists in the mid-1800s. So now, in 1871, this is the Joint House Committee talking to interviewing Robeson County Judge Guale. So this is what went on. The North Carolina Joint Senate and House Committee interviewed Robeson County Judge Gilles Leach about the free persons of color residing within his county. So the Senate asked him, half of the color population? Leach said, yes, sir. Half of the color population of Robeson County were never slaves at all. The Senate asked him, what are they? Are they Negroes? He said, well, sir, I desire to tell you the truth as near as I can see, but I don't know who they are or what they are. I think they are a mixture of Spanish, Portuguese, and Indian. Hold on. The Senate said, you think they are mixed Negroes and Indians? So right here, you see, they're calling the Spanish and the Portuguese Negroes. All right? You think they are mixed Negroes and Indians? He said, I do not think that in the class of population, there is much Negro blood at all. Of that half of the color population that I have attempted to describe, all have always been free. They are called mulattoes. That is the name they are known by, as distinguished from Negroes. I think that they are of Indian origin. The Senate said, I understand you to say that these 700 or 800 persons that you designate as mulattoes are not Negroes, but are a mixture of Portuguese and Spanish, white blood and Indian blood. You think that they are not generally Negroes? He said, I do not think that they are Negro, that the Negro blood predominates. The word mulatto means a cross between the white and the Negro. Yes, sir. You do not mean the word to be understood in that sense when applied to these people? He said, I really do not know how to describe these people. So in the excerpt, it said, every person not to bear Negro ancestry could be called mulatto as late as the 1870s. The term Portuguese used here to infer Spanish and Indian ancestry. Portuguese also used by persons of North Carolina, origin residing in South Carolina, Tennessee, etc., to describe mixed Indian white persons from North Carolina, Virginia border area during this same time. So all this looker stuff, it's been going on, man. I mean, you are who you are and all of that, but a lot of this looker stuff was going on. I'm just bringing out what I'm bringing out, and hope y'all enjoy that. You know what I mean?
Wow, brother, good presentation. You went in tonight. The people are loving it. They loving it in the chat. It's good to see the Indians supporting you this time, because the first time you came on, the Indians was going against you. I don't know what the hell was going on right there.
Now, that was criticism, man. You know, that was constructive criticism. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what I do, you know. No problem. You know what I mean? I take that from them. That only gonna make us better. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So,
okay, so let me ask you, brother. Are you good with taking a few questions or no? It's up to you.
Long as it's gonna be about what I build on, because last time I was up
I
here,
agree. I agree. Yep.
Nobody stayed on what I did my presentations on. So
Yeah.
if it's on my presentation, definitely.
Okay. I agree with you on that. So y'all hear it. The link is in the chat. It's pinned. Keep it on the topic. If you're asking questions that he ain't even talk about, don't even hit the link. And if you scared to cam up, don't even hit the link. I need to see who's coming on. It's a lot of pedos out there right now.
Yes.
It's a lot of pedos going on out there, you know? And so I'm surprised the natives on the Native American side, I didn't see no videos going up.
Yeah, man.
As far as the situation with
out there, man.
Yeah, the situation that took place with
man, Chief Supreme Holiday, Chief Bat, you know, Aboriginal Power, 2 Day 1. Salute to all the OGs who kicked the door down. You know what I'm saying? You know, Dave California brothers. You know what I mean? Where
yeah, the situation that happened with Solomon, Cole busted on the train. I know you heard about that, OTK. And whacking off to a 17-year-old. I'm surprised I didn't see nothing from the Aboriginal community, you know, because they would have been making mad videos. I'm surprised. Is everybody all right with that? With the pedo stuff? I don't get it. But anyway, we're gonna open up the floodgates and let's keep it on the topic. Peace and blessings, brother. What's happening, man?
Shout out to the foundational African Americans out there, you know, FAA out here. I got a question for OTK, because this is tying back to him. I know you're talking about the area of the Gullah Geechee of South Carolina, and you're talking about them being the Gullah is actually the Guale, and you're from that area, so you consider yourself the Gullah, right?
I'm actually farther up from that area.
Okay.
Yeah,
So well, isn't Pinckney Island over there?
Yeah, that's Buford. That's Buford
Yeah.
area. Yeah, going in the Savannah area, all that. I'm not from Pinckney Island though. I'm not. My ancestors them from Pinckney Island, but I'm not from Pinckney Island.
Okay, that's what I want to get on right there, right?
I grew up in Goose Creek.
So you would be descendant of Gullah Geechee, right?
I would be a descendant of the Guale, yeah, of the
right.
In between the Okeechee and the Altamaha, yeah, yep.
Okay,
but
so
I don't know that ancestor is far away removed from me though. You know what I'm saying?
when not a coincidence did your genealogy, why did we only find Africans instead of Guale or any of those people in your genealogy?
How can you do genealogy on a person with one name?
Well, Pinckney Island. I looked up Pinckney Island.
How did you connect that person? Hold on. How did you connect that person to OTK? Because I showed it. Because we got
the list of those the slave black people that were down there. Because Pinckney was a white man, right? He was a white man. We got the phone number to the museum and everything.
What this has to do with the bill?
So no, because you're connecting yourself to these people. Right.
My people have been there before. Any African? Did you see the bill? I talked about.
We found the Congo. Hold on, we found the Congolese and the Ghanaian lady in your bloodline, brother, and we know the amount of people that was down there on Pinckney Island that was enslaved. So I'm gonna step off, but I wanted to answer that.
King Cat,
what's up?
You got a question about what I build about?
Yes, that was tied into the bill.
Before any African came here, that's what my bill was about. You got something to say about that?
Right, but we didn't find no Guale in your family. We found only an African lady.
How would you know who the Guale is?
And the Congolese
How would
man.
you know who the Guale is? And how
because
y'all been doing ancestry? How y'all been doing ancestry on each other? These dudes been doing ancestry for 10 years, and they never found one. They took a name and brought up a project paper. That's why he would never bring up that paper no more.
Well, y'all tell us to do genealogy.
Y'all need to quit running around here saying that. Straight up. The dude will not show it no more to me. Not a coincidence. I bet him money that he would not show it. You a troll.
Elder Sai, that's a good debate that you should have not a see, because he pulled up his genealogy. You know what I'm saying? So I don't got nothing else to say, but
all right.
We didn't find no Indians as family. Peace.
Peace. All right, there you go. Hold it down, OTK. You know how I get.
Then you talking about a motherfucker who ain't even here. Tell that Ashkenazi Jew to come up. You know what I mean? And show that project paper from South Carolina University. Quit playing with me. I better quit playing with me.
All right, family. The link is in the chat. What's going on? The link is in the chat. This is your chance to ask OTK a question. Let's get it. Let's get it, y'all. Don't be afraid. OTK, you could go in, man, and elaborate why we waiting on people to hit the link.
Man, listen. I'm pretty much nobody want to come question up. I mean, I'm good. I'm gonna go ahead and go.
Yeah, you got them running now. Now they running scared now. You got them.
I'm gonna go catch the rest of this dinner party and this party with my son them. And you know what I mean? Because they went out to eat straight afterwards and then they doing something else. I told them I had to come here and do this, and then I was gonna go.
All right. Hey, my brother, thank you. Appreciate you coming through. Blessing the HOK once again. Go ahead and close us out, brother. Close us out.
Man, shouts out to all my American Indians, my American Aboriginals. Y'all already know we here. We ain't come here. We've been here and we ain't going nowhere. You know what I'm talking about? Like you said, man, this is the toughest environment. Either you source up or shut up. So I sourced up, so everybody shut up. Wild Indian, OTK.